Welcome back to another Koji update video. I know I say this pretty much every one of these, but it's been a while since the last one, and a lot of things have changed. So many things have changed, actually, that I think it's worth really only talking about some of the bigger things, and also speaking at a high level toward really why some of these things have changed in the ways that they have. So I think that'll be an interesting thing to talk about today, rather than kind of going through every little thing that's changed because there's just so many of them. So the first thing to talk about that you may have noticed is that we announced a $10 million Series A financing led by Galaxy Interactive. And there's a couple really good articles that were written about this, Protocol, Fast Company, VentureBeat, a few others, that I think do a really good job of capturing kind of the broader positioning of where we sit. One of the big things that's been driving a lot of our roadmap that we've talked about here and there before, but haven't really, I think, gone into too much detail about what it means, is this concept of the post-App Store world. And what this is kind of pointing to is this idea that in many ways, native apps have done amazing things. The app stores have unlocked incredible creativity and innovation and all that good stuff. But in many other ways, that we're a step back for software development and distribution, mainly because of the fragmentation between iOS and Android, and also kind of, platform lock-in and weird restrictions on device APIs and walled garden approval and all of that. And it feels like more and more that we're on the cusp of something new that goes beyond all of that. The textbook example of that is WeChat mini programs in China. But more and more, we're seeing big players start to lean in this direction of more bite-sized, instantly available content. We're seeing this with Apple, I think App Clips is what they're calling it in the new iOS, and Snapchat has what they're calling Snap Minis, pointing, I think, toward a broader trend that getting someone to download an app is really hard. And building giant monolithic applications is very difficult, requires a lot of resources. And kind of the gold rush of the app stores has really ended. One of the big things that we've leaned into is that instant remixing is now the dominant mode of creation of new Kojis. It's gotten so fast and easy to make these things now that most creation is being done from the phone, and most of it's being done from inside of other apps. So not even people visiting with Koji.com or whatever. They're simply finding these things inside of other apps and creating new remixes without ever leaving that app. So for example, here I am in Facebook, and I'm just on Dimitri's profile, and I'm going to tap on this Koji, and it's going to load, and I can remix it right from inside of Facebook. And I can change this around to say whatever I want it to say. Remixing on Facebook. And I can publish this, and I can share it, right back to Facebook. So this is insanely powerful because people don't need to understand kind of what Koji is, what it does, how it works, whatever. They can just find a piece of content and be prompted to understand that that piece of content is remixable and make their own without ever leaving whatever network they're inside of. And this kind of inline remixing is super powerful because it allows these things to be made so quickly that they can be made within the stream of conversation. So we've been thinking a lot about these things as evolutions in modes of expression on the internet. And I think GIFs are a good example of that because it's happened recently enough that we kind of all remember what the world was like before people were reacting to things with GIFs. And Koji is the next evolution of that, but even though it's kind of the next evolution, it's a bazillion times more powerful in terms of what it can do, because these things can be interactive, they can be dynamic, they can be transactional, they can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Their only limit is the limit of the web. So there's a lot of evolution to be had there and a lot of interesting places for it to go. What Koji is at its core is a remixing engine. It's a place for creating software that can reproduce and that anyone can remix to create unique reproductions. And Koji takes that one step further. Because Koji apps are simply full stack JavaScript, the Koji web editor allows anyone to introduce mutations into those apps. And that's what allows us to get evolution instead of simply reproduction. And that's really the secret sauce of what we're doing here. So not only is the Koji player and the remixer portable and embeddable, all of Koji is. So I'm still in Facebook here. Let's reopen this. And you can see that I'm inside the Koji feed right now, inside of Facebook. So I'm just swiping through things, kind of like TikTok. And this is, I'm playing some of these experiences, I'm swiping through others. And all the power of Koji is inside of Facebook. We didn't download an app, we didn't even visit a website, we didn't do anything. Koji is basically treating Facebook as the operating system that it runs on top of. On average, anyone who sees a Koji also then goes on to view 7 more Kojis because they're in this feed. And this is just like a garbage, unranked, most recent feed. So that's pretty awesome. It's obviously super compelling. And again, when I'm done with this, I'm back inside of Facebook. I can go right on browsing or doing what I was doing inside of Facebook. And what's unique about the Koji approach to mini apps is that they're decoupled from any specific host app. They work on every one of them. We're basically saying that, you might spend some percent of your time on Twitter, some percent of your time on Facebook. You might not use Snapchat at all. You might use Instagram. You might not use WhatsApp. And we don't care because we're bundling all of those together and saying this aggregate is our operating system. We can run on top of any of these things. And so what does this mean that we're treating every app as kind of this weird composite operating system? Basically, because Kojis are powered by the web, they run on anything with a web view or a browser. And every major app integrates its own web view because they don't just link out because they don't want you to leave your app and go into some browser. They try and keep you in there. So pretty much any app that renders a link is a Koji runtime. And one of the things that we're playing around with is how do we make that experience a bit more seamless? What would a deeper integration look like? What value can we bring back to the host app in a more seamless integration? And there's a couple interesting things that are worth showing that are kind of hints toward the future. One over here is if you click on the hamburger menu and go to plugins, you can see basically the embedded Koji player. So you can create one of these things. It's kind of like the old Facebook like button that had the face pile of all your friends that liked something, but the Koji version of that. And you can, right now put in a hashtag. Soon we're going to have moderated collections for profiles for people that want to use these on their site but don't want to just put in an unmoderated hashtag in there for obvious reasons. But you can configure this thing and then you can get the code. And this is either simply a link, which you could put inside of your Instagram bio or somewhere else, or it's an iframe or JavaScript embed. So what this looks like, this is a little Squarespace website that I made to demo this. And we've got this embedded Koji player / collection renderer / content creator right here inline inside my page. We've also got Zach Braff down here. And so this is embedding this meme hashtag. And when I tap one of these, I've embedded the Koji feed inside of my website. I've also embedded a creation tool inside of here so I could my audience can create something inside of here and post it into this hashtag about me. So I can curate this collection about me or my brand or whatever it is and display it right inside my website as this embedded player. This works on, again, anything that, supports a link. It works more seamlessly if you can inject HTML. It looks beautiful if you can inject JavaScript and put the SDK in so we can take over the full screen to show some of these things. That's just the beginning of some of this. The other cool thing, so if you want to learn more about this, there's a GitHub repository. All the SDK code is open source, and you can take a look at what it looks like. It's tiny. It's not very big at all because it's just loading some iframes and handling some events. And this is a kind of a jumping off point to what a deeper integration with a network might look like and what value Koji can bring to a bigger network. So in this case, let me go to, so I put together a little user script to demo this. So this is our Koji subreddit. And you can see that if I want to comment something, I can, do some formatting. I can comment a link. I can comment, I think that's about it. But there's this more button here. And this more button I've wired up to the Koji SDK. So from right inside of Reddit, in a comment, I can create a meme, and I can change this to be, whatever, and create it. And I'm still inside of Reddit and just comment this, and I'm done. So I can go to create post, and the same sort of thing we've done here. So on Reddit, I can make a text post. I can post an image or a video. I can post a link. I can post a poll. And Koji adds this more button where I can post today 527 other things, and over time, an infinite number of things. And it's the same sort of process here. So this is just a little user script. I'm actually going to package it as a Chrome extension so people can start to play with it a little more. And I think we'll get some really good ideas from letting some of the community play with this stuff. The interesting thing about this, from kind of a broad positioning standpoint, is that right now we live in a world where innovation in terms of post types is tightly coupled to innovation in terms of networks. And what I mean by that is that if you invent some super cool new thingy, some super cool new piece of creative expression that you think would be super valuable to people, like this iMessage conversation generator fits into a genre of narrative storytelling called chat fiction, where people write these crazy intense stories, typically horror or romance or whatever, inside of these iMessage conversations. And if you come up with something like this, for example, the 7-second video that we saw with Vine, or the lip sync that we saw popularized by Musical.ly and TikTok, you also have to invent a whole new social network to be able to distribute that new post type, which is like a crazy thing to be required to do to share something cool and expressive with other people. And one of the things that I think is super interesting about Koji, and specifically this kind of Koji SDK and the more button, and how we're starting to think about it in this way, is that this really does provide for that decoupling in innovation in terms of democratized units of self-expression from innovation in terms of creating and optimizing a new social network. And I think we're going to see a lot more interesting ideas and interesting little apps and interesting little pieces of expression that we wouldn't see in this current world where there's so much required to even attempt to get something like that off the ground. Yeah, so that's, generally it. I mean, obviously the site looks completely different than the last video. If you were looking at it in here, let me actually pull it up on my phone. The player looks different. Things generally, load a lot faster. They're a lot easier to remix. Things have gotten a lot more powerful, a lot cleaner, and a lot easier to use. So onward and upward in that direction, which is good. And we're also seeing a lot of really cool new templates come in. I think I showed you the chat fiction iMessage conversation. Memes have basically dominated Koji simply because they're the easiest thing to create. Like, it's obvious in retrospect that if you give people a super easy tool to create memes, especially inline in conversations or in comments threads or wherever, that they go crazy for it. And there's some really cool stuff happening with massively synchronous real-time experiences. So if you saw the Mr. Beast finger on the app thing from a couple weeks ago, that wasn't us, but we've got some templates now that are kind of in that same realm of tap the button a million times and crowdsource it, and then the reveal happens. And being able to the crazy thing with that is the Mr. Beast thing. I read an interview where someone said that it took 6 months to develop that app. And with Koji, you can make, once the template's done, you can make one of these things in 30 seconds for free and deploy it and have it run everywhere. There's some cool stuff that is happening with in-app purchases. So that framework is available. There's a couple demos happening with it. That's going to be really cool too, especially in this world where, any opportunity for anyone to make some money is incredibly valuable, especially if it's lightweight, especially if it embeds in social. Like being able to, put transactions super easily into a swipe up inside of Instagram or Snapchat, I think is incredibly valuable to a lot of people, and we're going to see some really interesting stuff there. And if you want to participate in this thing in any way, always happy to chat, and I will see you next time.